Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and I'll be your host for the next hour of answering your gardening questions. Give us a call at 1-800-676-5446. Our volunteers will be happy to help you with your gardening problem. If you've got pictures you'd like to submit, please send us an email to byf@unl.edu. Don't forget to tell us where you live, and also don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you also like our Facebook fan page. We have changed it up a little bit, and we have a bunch of newbies on the panel tonight. So, Wayne, we're going to start right off with a question or two for you. All right. We have 3 pictures on this very first one. This comes to us from Norfolk, and she sent this question April 4th and did not send pictures. We asked for pictures, got those. She wants to avoid cicada killers in her flower beds. She did describe them. She knows they don't hurt her, but they are scary. They're by the front door. It's the 3rd year. She does want to know how to get rid of them. They're scary, plus they make a mess.
I gotcha. So when I look at these pictures, one of the things that I notice is that the mulch is very thin across the bed. It's not very thick. The thicker you have that mulch, the more it will discourage the cicada killers from digging in that area because they have to go through more to get down to the soil. So that would probably be the best place to start. Get some mulch on there.
And you don't really use wasp and hornet?
You can, but it's not always the best thing to do with those. A little bit of discouragement goes a long ways.
All right. And the scariness is, they're just big.
They're just big. I mow over them, I mow around them. My kids chase them.
Cats play with them.
Yeah.
All right. You have 3 on this next one, 3 pictures. This comes to us from Lincoln. It says the end buds, or the clusters of leaves on this European cranberry bush viburnum, they look like these round spiky things, and they're soft, not hard. And then the branches have these round brown hard things that have formed around them. The question is, are they the same thing? How can they get rid of whatever this is? And it does seem to be spreading from shrub to shrub in this location, just on this type of viburnum.
So Lauren and I had a little bit of discussion on this pre-show, and I can't find any insects or mites that make these kinds of galls on viburnums. I did a lot of digging to see if I could find anything, and unfortunately, most of the insects and mites that make galls on viburnums do so on the leaves themselves, not on the stems and the branches. Lauren didn't seem to think it was much for an
Well, I didn't, but
disease.
It just came to me that it looks like in the pictures, Wayne, that could be associated with pruning sites. And I wondered if that was the case where it pruned because it's on the joints, if it could be a crown gall situation. That would be the only thing I could think of because of where it is located at nodes. And that's just a thought. So if they look at this and they think it is related to that, I would, you'd prune that out, but recommend sanitation of your pruners in between cuts. So that would be another option, but that's the only thing I could think of.
We'll see if this person can bring you a sample.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That's my viburnum audience.
We were trying to be nice, Kim.
Kim doesn't want to admit she didn't sterilize her pruners in between
I
cuts.
never do. Not true, actually. All right, Terry, you have 2 on this first one, 2 pictures. She is from Grand Island. She wants to know, what is this weed and how can she get rid of it?
So this is chickweed, and it is very far along. Looks like you're well past the flower piece of it and you're into the seeding piece. So I would go in and get with your pruners and get as much of that seed out of there as possible. It's a winter annual. So just like we've talked about for the past couple weeks, henbit, where it sprouts kind of in the fall and then it kind of sits there and then grows in the spring. It's what this one does too. So make sure you have no seeds or get as many seeds out of there as possible. I'm going to pre-emergent in the fall will help control that if you have it again.
All right, thanks, Terry. You have, one picture on this next one. He knows somebody who wants to grow a clover patch of only about 1,000 square feet, wants to keep the grass and the broadleaf weeds out. He's wondering about recommendations without pulling. He thought about using a pre-emerge last month, so like March-ish. Didn't want to hurt the seeds. He's used Fusilade for the grassy weeds, not sure how to control the broadleaves, and he's from Lake of the Ozarks.
So I would probably start anew on this. There's not really going to be a selective where you're going to be able to get rid of the broadleaf weeds and the turf and keep the clover. So it didn't look like there was a lot of clover there yet. So my recommendation would be to take a non-selective herbicide, get rid of it all. You'll probably have to do 2 or 3 applications and then start over with your desired clover mix to kind of get it up and going.
All right, sometimes starting over is easier.
Yeah.
Probably keep your fertilizer really light too, right? That'll favor the clover.
Exactly.
No fertilizer.
All right, Lauren, 3 picks on this next one. This is an Omaha viewer. He says he has a peony with some type of fungus, and he did say, should he rogue it out? So this one is definitely for you.
I appreciate that. This one, I was really having a little bit of trouble identifying where the fungus is. If this is the root system that we're looking at, or if we're looking at a piece from the other side, it almost looked like a piece of bark. So if it is a rooted peony and not a tree peony, I would encourage just watching this and seeing how it grows and how it comes out. Making sure you have good drainage and such. If it's declining at all, then you could go into the rogue it out mode. But you've got some new growth coming. I just can't tell exactly what that is I'm looking at, if it's a piece of bark or what's going on. It is common to have fungal growth on mulch areas around roots and things that cannot be a disease. So
and maybe the whole plant, if he's got more of a picture of the whole plant.
Yeah, if he's got a picture of the plant, or if you have other peonies and you're seeing those grow out fine and that one's declining, then that would surely be a time to rogue it out and replace it.
All right, and I know trees are just your absolute favorite.
Yeah, I love trees. I got 2 chainsaws at home. Which one do you want me to use?
So this one, I gave it to you because you need to see this. This is a white birch in Omaha, 2 pictures. She says it's probably 50 years old. She wonders what's making the holes, and then you can see what's in them, and she's wondering if this tree is worth saving.
Yeah, and so looking at this, there's one portion of the tree that looks like it has some sort of a large fungal canker, would be my guess. Looking at it, as this is emerging in the spring, it's a good time to tell if you're not seeing growth out of that portion of the tree. I would look at that and consider removing that branch possibly and seeing if you can, you still have a tree. If you're not seeing that and it's all coming out fine, I would just simply wait for a while. Some of our trees can last with cankers for a decade. So,
or more.
Yeah,
50 years is long for a birch.
So, it's an old one, so it's going to start declining probably. But if they're enjoying the tree, just kind of watch that, making sure it's not a hazard tree. If you have that branch weakened, that's a point you could be concerned about.
All right, thank you, Lauren. You have 3 pictures on this first one, Jeff. Okay. This is an Omaha viewer. She's in a new house. She has 4 of these. She sent us 3 pictures. Why are 2 of them growing this way? So you can see the 4, then you can see this one, and then you could see, I think the next one is even funnier.
That's cool.
Wow.
That is very cool. So she has dwarf Alberta spruce, and they are reverting. So that the original plant is a sport, comes off of a tree, and someone has propagated those, and so they're pretty popular because they have that nice columnar and they're small and they have fine foliage. So, but it is reverted to the species, and sometimes early on, if you catch it, you can prune that out and kind of just manage it that way, and then the plant will stay full. But those have gone too far, I think. You can still try to prune out the reverted portion and see how it takes it, but I think you're probably looking at replacing those.
You have a big white spruce on top of a little dwarf Alberta.
I thought the one looked really cool.
Yeah.
All right, you have 3 pictures on the next one also. This is Omaha 20-year-old plus aspen tree suffering, well, it's still getting leaves. Over the past several years, they pruned out several branches that turned black with no leaves. The bark has changed colors about 3 feet up, and there are a couple of kind of indentations at the base. Grass has stopped growing. Time to remove or enjoy for a few more seasons.
Well, this is kind of like Lauren's birch, I think. I think is for an aspen in Omaha, I think it's done really well. And considering that we have lawn right up to the base of the tree is also a bit of a concern. I think, a long time ago we should have mulched around that tree, which would have protected the base of the tree and the root system a little bit more. It kind of looks like maybe there's a canker on that as well. And that's what I think is probably happening with that. So, I think at this point, as long, again, like Lauren was saying, if there's no targets, if there's nothing near the tree that you're worried about it being, if it does fail, falling on, then I think you're fine. You can enjoy it for a little bit more, or if you're done with it and ready to move on to something else, this might be an opportunity to bring something else in there.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Well, pruning is a chore that can sometimes be a little bit intimidating. Knowing when and where to cut are the key steps to help your spring flowering shrubs keep their shape, have spectacular flowers every single year. I'll bet if you're a really good gardener, one of the things you looked forward to was those early spring flowering shrubs, and they have either finished flowering or they're pretty close. So what we want to talk about today is how you actually prune those early flowering shrubs so that they will flower again next year. Quince is a really good example. This one actually is in bud as we're taping this segment. The flowers have been set on what we call old wood. And the same thing is true of forsythia, which we will also look at, and Nanking cherry. And if you prune after they flower within about a month, you will not be taking off those flower buds for next year. Lilacs are the same thing. So if you look at this beautiful quince, as it's beginning to flower, every single flower bud you see was set after flowering. So depending on how you want this shrub shaped, what you will do is wait until after the flowering is finished, then you will do that pruning, and you have about a month. And realistically, depending on the shrub, you can cut back a lot of material on it and still get flowering next year. Nanking cherry is actually even earlier than quince, and it's absolutely beautiful in flower. The interesting thing this year, because we had such strange weather, is they started to flower, it got cold, they stopped. Some of the buds along the stem actually didn't open. That said, this is still a shrub that we prune within a month after they flower, so we get that flowering on old wood. Now obviously this is a great big one, it's kind of outgrown its space. If we wanted to take this way back, we could still do that. We cut above a good set of buds, they will branch, they'll be a little bit more full. The beauty of Nanking cherry though, is that those flowers are so luscious that all the pollinators love them. So we do want to make sure that we don't prune too late after they flower, or we will really be reducing the numbers of flowers for next year. If you had forsythia, you know this was a really bad year for them. They bloomed really low, if at all, and of course it is a very early flowering shrub. They're finished. It's another one that if you prune after they flower within a month, which is just about now, you will not be taking off the flower buds for next year. You can shape, you can do anything you want to, but again, if you take these to the ground in July or August or September, you are not going to have flowers on forsythia this year. So keep in mind those early flowering shrubs have got to be pruned within about a month after they flower so that you do not remove the flower buds for next year's crop. Otherwise, you're going to get the shrub, you're not going to get the beauty. Pruning doesn't have to be that big mystery as long as you do understand the biology of your shrubs. And it really does come down to the timing to maintain the shape that you want, not lose the flowers. All right, round two of questions. Wayne, you have two pictures for this one. They come to us from Eagle. She is saying, what are these holes? And they are near the flower garden, the wood pile, and shaded areas. So what are these holes?
Well, they are called antlion pits. One ant enters, no ant leaves. As what we got going on here. So at the bottom of that pit, buried in there, is a little antlion larva with big jaws. And when the ant falls down the sides of that, it will actually throw little tiny bits of soil up at that ant to try and knock it down closer to it so that it can grab it and suck the insides out. So that is what's going on. So if you want to have some fun, toss a few small ants in those and watch what happens with those.
So what does the lion turn into?
It turns into something that looks a little bit like a damselfly, but they're a little bit different. You can actually see the antennae on these, and they don't require a water source in terms of a pond or a stream in their life cycle.
Okay, and these are not going to hurt our landscape? Or,
oh, no, definitely not.
No, just
they're entertainment.
If you put the ant in, can you see the lion come out like you can see him?
You can see the head. The only part you'll see is the head. And if you want to get really creative, you can use a hand trowel and get under there. But they are tough to sift out of that soil. But you can do it.
Nice.
sounds like a great project for kids.
I did it as a kid.
Oh my goodness. All right, so let's see, you have two pictures on this next one. This comes to us from North Bend, doing a garden and wants to know how to keep the ants out of it. And the reason they ask this question is they're doing strawberries and other plants, don't know if they might damage them. They're new to gardening.
Oh no, these are not anything to worry about with strawberries. In fact, ants tend to eat a lot of things that might get into the strawberries, including things like maggots that'll drop out of there and into the soil. So they're good to have around. And in terms of the little white things floating around in there, those are the larvae. And they'll bring them up to the surface under slim wood or flagstones or anything like that might warm up in the sun a little faster, so they get a little warmer environment, especially in the cooler portions of the year.
They help you aerate your soil too.
They do move a lot of soil.
And those little white things are just the larvae?
Those are just the larvae. Okay. So if you ever flip one of those over and then there's a bunch of little pill-like looking things, those are actually the ant cocoons. And inside of that's the pupa.
All right, so people are a little worried that those are termites because people don't know much about
No, we have a lot of ants in the yard that most people never really realize are there.
All right, excellent. All right, Terry, you have, let's see, two questions on this first one. They're going along Highway 370 near Papillion and saw this pretty purple field. Thought maybe others had seen pretty purple fields this year. They've noticed more of it this year than ever before. Is it drought? Is it weather? There are hundreds of acres in Missouri along I-29. What in the world is this?
That's just henbit. So isn't it beautiful? Again, a winter annual. It usually won't ruin any acres decline on your crops or anything because it's pretty much gone as soon as it gets hot. So farmers are just going to basically probably plant into it and hope that they get rid of the seeds, which they probably won't.
Exactly. All right, and you have one picture on the next one. This is a Smith Center, Kansas viewer. She has a buffalo grass lawn, well established, and now they have an overgrowth of henbit. So when does she treat the henbit and with what in buffalo grass?
So the buffalo grass won't be growing yet, but I would probably get out there and mow so that you get the seed heads off that henbit so you don't let it go to seed, so you can try to get rid of some of that seed bank that could potentially fall down into that into your turf after it blooms and goes to seed. So, but again, it's a winter annual and you're going to treat that in the fall. So like September, you're going to put that pre-emerge down. Sometimes it's hard to find pre-emerge in the fall. So you may want to buy it now and hold on to it until fall and then put that on then. So that might be kind of a strategy for you, especially in that buffalo grass.
And anything with the pre or just the pre itself? Fertilizer?
So your fertilizer I probably wouldn't do on a buffalo grass because by that time your buffalo grass is kind of going into a dormant state anyway. So yeah, I would probably just go with the pre-emergent. So if you can find a pre-emergent that has no fertilizer in it, that would be best. You may have to find that online, but if you do have a fertilizer, then that's probably the best thing you can do.
All right. You have 2 picks on the next one, and this person has said, what is this huge colony of what looks like a weed in the mint family? It came up quickly and it flowered immediately. They want to know if they can control it without injuring anything in the surrounding landscape and without impacting the raised beds that are next to it.
So I think we needed to call 2024 a year of henbit. So this is in the mint family. You're gonna, if you know the mint family, you're gonna go down and feel the stem, and it will be a square stem. So that's a true sign of what a mint. Again, don't let this go to seed. If it's not gonna hurt anything, it's gonna be a winter annual, and control it with a pre-emerge.
All right, and since it's mint family, Wayne, is this a good one for early pollinators?
They do like it. Don't spray it while it's blooming.
Don't spray it now anyway.
Yeah, it'll just go to seed quicker if you spray it now.
All right. Lauren, you have 1 picture from this person. She's in Grand Island. She started seedlings, and she found this thing in her seedlings tray. She thinks it's a fungus. Could it be a slime mold or an algae, or what is it? It's that lovely orange stuff.
The brighter color, I do believe it's a slime mold. We see a lot of these on the show in different pictures, and so if our viewers think of the different ones that we've shown over the years, you'll see orange ones, you'll see yellow ones, you see some pink ones. Probably the most common one we see is a white slime mold. You'll be able to tell it's a slime mold as it dries, if it'll be kind of crusty or flaky. With that, it will be there. So if this is in a seedling tray, or if you're doing something in that capacity, you'll want to make sure you clean up well afterwards. It shouldn't really hurt anything, but just to remedy it, if you wanted to get rid of it in the future, I wouldn't worry about it right now. But just make sure you really sanitize all your potting materials in the future, and you should be able to get rid of it.
So she shouldn't do what you suggest, which is feed it and watch it crawl toward the...
Well, if you wanted to have fun, you could take some oatmeal and put it on the other side, and it may be one that grows towards it. There's different species of slime molds. Some of them are more mobile than others, and actually, in some places in the world, in maybe nerdy science departments, like maybe where I'm at, we might have little slime mold races and put trays out and watch them move. So anyway. They are mobile. They're very neat organisms. Beautiful. Read about slime molds. Learn more. I've never eaten one.
Yes, you have.
Not a slime mold.
Didn't you eat one on air?
I don't remember it. Maybe I did eat it.
Probably for good reason.
Apparently they're hallucinogenic.
Probably. I think it just didn't taste very good.
It could have been too. Suppress that.
You have 3 pictures on the next one. This is a viewer who he saved these for you. He knew you might appreciate these. He does want to know what these are. So
this one first, before we show the other ones, this is the beginning of a stinkhorn mushroom. Mm-hmm. So these are egg-like structures. Some people call them witches' eggs. Some people call in and say, I found some snake eggs, which actually do look a lot like these. Didn't know that till I had a snake egg experience, but anyway. These are, they'll eventually emerge into a stinkhorn mushroom. So really interesting, really alien-looking things, amazing. This one and the next picture is really interesting little, very tiny fungal genus and species that's, I actually had to look this one up, had a friend help me. This is Marasmius. So Marasmius is the genus, also called pinwheel mushrooms, which if you look closely at the top as they open up, they look like little pinwheels, but little tiny fungi that grow many times down in grass areas and such, that we'll find them, or in the garden under a canopy. So just beautiful little fungi that are out there. Again, just enjoy them, not worried about any disease or anything like that. Just some great observations by the person that sent them in. Thank you very much. That was fun.
Especially since they're so teeny.
Yeah. And it's amazing. If you go out in your yard in the summer, and I I don't know if you ever see me crawling around in my yard, that's what I'm doing. You can find some amazing little fungi growing in there, and just, yeah, super fun.
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right, Jeff, you have 2 pictures on this one. This is a Sioux City viewer. She has strawberry vanilla hydrangeas, which is one we have.
Okay.
Hers are 10 years old. The rabbits, wascally wabbits, got them. She wonders if she can do some pretty significant pruning on these and be fine with this hydrangea.
She really can, and actually they're due for some significant pruning. So I think, obviously go in, take out all the damage, the animal damage, and then you can really head this plant back. If you'd like to reduce it, take some of the bigger canes down. I would, this obviously has been pruned previously, so I think I would still leave, maybe 2 feet of plant there. So I wouldn't take it all the way to the ground, but you can certainly take a lot out of that plant right now, and you'll find that it should really enhance your flowers as well as we go later into the year. It'll delay the flowering, so it's going to be a little later in the summer than usual, but they'll be typically a bit larger.
And the way you prune them on campus is the way they should be pruned,
Yeah.
which is a lot.
Yeah, we take a lot out of them, and they're tough. They'll handle it, but they recover and they do well.
All right, you have 2 pictures on the next one. This is an Omaha viewer. She has an azalea in bloom, kind of, but half looks dead and about half has leaves. This looks like PJM or one of them.
Yeah, it does.
What should she do? Start over or?
Yeah, I think, well, at this stage, it doesn't hurt to wait and see if it comes out of it, but I think you're going to want to start over on this particular plant. It didn't mention how old it is. It looks like a young plant to me. And I think and there's a lot of good rhododendrons and azaleas for our area that do really well. I think if you decide to replace it with a like sort of plant, make sure that you bring in a lot of organic matter to modify that soil a little bit so that when you plant it, it has a good start.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Well, before we go to break, let's take a few minutes now to hear from Gannon Rush from the UNL High Plains Regional Climate Center about what we can expect on this week's winter forecast. Winter weather
Thanks, Kim.
forecast.
Looking ahead, it's going to be pretty cool this weekend, with highs in the upper 40s into the low 50s. There are chances across the state of freezing temperatures on Saturday and Sunday, so definitely keep that in mind. As the week progresses, we will rapidly warm up, and by Wednesday, highs should be in the upper 60s into the low 70s. Unfortunately, due to a data issue at the national level, we were not able to get an updated precipitation map. The one shown for Monday accurately depicts the heavy rainfall in the northeastern part of the state. For this upcoming week, there are chances of snow in the western and southwestern portions of the state. During the week, there are chances of scattered storms across the state. Soil temperatures this week are in the upper 50s into the low 60s, thanks to the unseasonable warmth this week. With the expected freezing temperatures, these will likely fall and stay that way through the rest of the week. And that's your weekly weather forecast. Back to you, Kim.
Right now, of course, it is time for the lightning round. Okay, Jeff.
Okay.
Based on that weather forecast,
Right.
should people cover or otherwise protect their plants for tonight through Sunday, and if so, with what and how?
Yes, they should. And so you can do a variety of things. You want to avoid plastic. So if you have any kind of row cover or something like that, use that. I know I have some plants that I'm keeping covered right now, so I'm keeping them inside.
All right. We have a Lincoln viewer who says their asparagus is already up and already going to fern.
Oh, wow.
Is there any way to delay that?
I don't think so. You can go ahead and cut some of those back if you want. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay. We have a Syracuse viewer who had tomato seedlings that broke off in the wind. She's wondering if she can just lie them down on the soil to get them to root again.
She might be able to. If they're still attached to the main plant, she could try kind of layering them in there and then covering them for this weekend.
Okay. We have a Fairbury viewer who wants to use pine straw to create acidity in her soil. Should she leave what is already there or remove it and put down new pine straw?
She could leave she could do both, but I take a lot of pine straw to change our pH in our soils.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Lauren, you ready? No lunch meat?
I'm ready as a fresh morel that's been breaded in flour and getting ready to be dipped in some olive oil.
You're
on the stove.
anticipating one of your
Yes,
lightning
I
round
am.
questions.
Wow. Let's see what happens.
All right, your first one is, if it rains in an elevator, will mold develop?
Okay. I'm going to talk about this
Gotcha.
afterward. Yes. Yes, it would.
Gotcha. All
Yeah.
right. People want to be ready for their peaches, and you say to boil them for a little bit so they don't get the mold on them. For how long?
After you harvest them, it's a hot water treatment. Please look it up online. I may say it wrong. I think it's 120 degrees for 60 seconds.
All right.
140 degrees for 60 seconds. It works very well.
Is it morel time, and are people finding them?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I have not yet.
Or you're not telling us. We have a viewer who had moldy tulip bulbs, and if they get planted, will the mold spread into the rest of their garden bed?
Usually not. Most of the time on our bulbs, those are some sort of superficial mold, maybe even like a penicillium or something, so I wouldn't be too worried about that.
All right. Is it time to use a fungicide for dollar spot in a home lawn?
No, it's too early.
All right. And you're done, and you can come back to that very first question, which was totally a setup.
So I go to open the elevator in Plant Science Hall, and I push the button, and I hear something, and the elevator opens up, and I hear water just running, and I try to step in, and there's like water just dripping all over me. And that's when I called our building person, TJ, and said, I think we have a problem. Thankfully, it did not come out of a lab in plant pathology. So that was a win for the day.
All right, Terry, are you ready?
I don't know. After that, I'm not for sure.
All right. Your first question is, this is a viewer in the Lost Hills and wonders about putting weed and feed on the lawn now or wait a little bit.
I would probably wait for weed and feed.
All
Yeah.
right. How long?
Oh, weed and feed, I would probably wait until like late May, 1st of June, because you're going to try to kill some of those broadleaf weeds with the weed and feed. So that'll be a later, closer to when it gets warmer outside.
All right. This is an Ottawa, Iowa viewer who wonders, is there a hand piece of equipment they can use to flatten their lawn?
Well, I mean, there are those big rollers that you can rent, and you put water in them and make them heavy, and then you just roll them back and forth, and that will level your lawn. Yeah.
All right. This is an Oxford, Nebraska viewer who used step 1 of a 4-step with pendimethalin in it. Did the same thing last year, but it didn't work. Should they repeat the pendimethalin this year?
So it's going to depend on what you're trying to stop from growing. So if you're putting it down too early, then it just may be not active enough. So you could push it later into the season to see if that doesn't help.
All right. You ready, Wayne?
I guess.
Okay. This is your first question. This is a Neely viewer who wonders, is there any prediction for Japanese beetles due to the weird weather this year?
Oh, who knows? All I know is that the dry winter last year, they were lower.
All right. We have a person asking, they have a new solitary bee house. Should they go ahead and put that out? They haven't seen anything flying around yet.
They've started. The plums are blooming. The pollinators are buzzing.
All right. Excellent. We have a viewer who has grown cherry trees. They've finished flowering. Is it time to go ahead and treat for cherry maggots?
No, you treat for cherry maggots just when the cherries start to turn from green to pink.
Okay. We have, are you aware of a borer that gets into linden trees? This is an Omaha viewer.
There is a linden tree twig borer, and there's a few others that will get into them if they're stressed.
All right. The insects that are out this week, this cold weather, will that annihilate them?
A lot of them are early season ones that tend to have strategies for surviving. Getting down close to soil where it's warmer or in leaf litter. Unfortunately, a lot of them will be fine, but the mosquitoes will die.
Perfect. Great answer. All right. Kind of a fun round, guys. All right, Jeff, what are our plants of the week?
Well, we have 2 white flowering plants of the week. One a shrub, one a perennial. So the one here that you can see with the flowers kind of hanging down is a variegated Solomon seal. So the Solomon seals are going to like a nice shady location. A lot of organic matter in the soil, so it spreads, makes a beautiful colony, as Kim likes to say. And so has great form. It's a cool plant. And then the shrub we have here is April snow Woodgella. So it's very reliable, 5 by 5, so 5 foot by 5 foot. And again, it'll tolerate some shade. And no dieback, so 2 pretty plants.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Well, you know, last week we heard from Jeff about the importance of soil preparation this spring. And of course, we try to put that into practice in the Backyard Farmer Garden. Here's Terry to tell us more.
This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, it is soil prep time. As you can remember, last fall we talked about getting our soil ready for our 2024 season. We turned it all over and we planted that cover crop of oats. Normally, oats do not survive the winter, but we all know how crazy of a winter we had. The soil was still warm when we had that snow in January. The January snow came, it blanketed the soil for us. When that was cold, Arctic winds came down for that week and a half or 2 weeks for us. So all of our oats are still standing up and looking very nice, which we really don't want. So we're going to be working our garden. We're going to be mowing down the oats. We're going to be turning this over and using it as green manure in our raised beds and in our garden. So stop by the Backyard Farmer Garden and check it out.
We're still a few weeks away from planting, but our soil is ready to go thanks to a cover crop and years of good management. All right, Wayne, we have one picture on this next one. This comes to us from Aurora. And that's what he sent, and those are little bugs on the back of the house. What are those?
Yeah, well, these are incredibly tough to get good pictures of, especially with a phone camera. And the very top dot, you can just barely see some orange legs sticking out of that. And that tells me these are clover mites. You have to zoom in, Lauren, okay?
It's not seeing it, Wayne.
And every year I get phone calls about clover mites. They're moving around with the warmer temperatures. Don't smash them. They stain. If you do, wet cloths to just kind of gently mop them up is one way to go about it. Vacuum cleaners work really well. Spraying does not.
All right, thank you. You have one on this one also. These guys, there were a handful, were on plants in the Backyard Farmer Garden. Are they ladybugs or lady beetles? Which one is good?
Well, this one is the multicolored Asian lady beetle, and they have a very wide variety of spots on the back. So this is not one you can count spots and identify. This one has more, some have none. So in this case, they're aphid predators. They're very beneficial. They are something that you want to have around.
All right, excellent. Terry, you have, let's see, 2 pictures on this first one. This is from rural western Otoe County. And this is in quotes, grass or weed is growing in a few small patches around the acreage. It grows what would have been in prairie originally. It just sort of sits there, doesn't appear to be a problem. They typically mow it down. They're curious as to what it is.
Well, these are pussy toes. So this is actually something that lots of people plant in like their rock gardens and stuff. So this is a great find. It's only going to grow to about maybe 12 inches tall at the most when it's in full flower, and it's just going to kind of hang out, maybe kind of grow this way slowly. But kind of fun. The flowers look like a cat's paw. That's why they call it that. But Wayne would appreciate this because it is an attractant for the caterpillar for painted ladies. So something to keep around.
Yeah, and native.
Yep. And native, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this one you have one picture, and she is saying she's in Lancaster County. Is this in the mint family? Does she keep it? Did she kill it? Is it perennial?
Oh, goodness. It looks like it's something in the mint family. I couldn't tell you for sure what it is without maybe seeing some flowers or smelling it. Again, you can always define most stuff in the mint family. You go down, that stem is going to be square, so you can pull it up and see that it's going to be a square stem. Mints are great runners, so if it's somewhere where you really don't care, you can kind of control it. But if you need to keep it under control, I would start digging it out. I would probably use some kind of herbicide on it. It's going to be something that's going to take some effort to get rid of if you want to get rid of it.
All right. Lauren, you have one picture on this one. This is an Elba potato. What caused this? Some have it and some do not. And this came actually through Facebook.
Okay, and if this is someone that's looking at using this for seed, I would not plant anything that's discolored in any way like this for seed. It looks like it could be, and we'd have to do a test to know for sure, but it looks like it could be one of our viruses, possibly something called potato chip virus, which could cause this to look like this pattern in the tuber. If you were to plant that tuber, there's a really good chance that it wouldn't sprout. If it does, it could produce a plant that doesn't produce much, and then you would have the virus in your potato planting that could be spread by the vectors, which is a potato psyllid. So I would recommend, if you're looking at it for seed, I wouldn't plant it. It's not a problem to eat it, but it's just a discoloration, and that's a viral disease that's impacting the potato industry fairly significantly.
All right, thank you, Lauren. You have one picture on this one. He has an ash. It's not emerald ash disease. It is fungal, loose leaves, late June every year. He has sprayed, has difficulty with it. What should he do about this?
Yeah, this is ash rust. And we know that because if you look close at the leaves, they're really rough, and you can see the little spore-producing structures on the underside of the leaf. This is cycling from one of our native grasses, and I can't recall which one. But you might look in the landscape. I think it would be pretty hard to say you're going to take that out. But if you could identify a larger one of the native grasses, I believe it might be Indian grass, that is the alternate host. So it would rotate back and forth, just like we talk about with cedar apple rust. So that would be the way. You could try to spray it if you're really worried about it. It's not going to kill the tree, and we are talking about an ash, so it's probably fine. So.
All right, two pictures on the next one, and you get this even though it is you, because he's from Seward. He noticed this damage, and it has doubled in size in the last month. He's wondering if it's a fungus that he can treat with copper fungicide, or is this winter injury?
There's something, if you take those individual branches that are being affected and try to follow those down into the shrub, you're probably going to find one of two things: some sort of injury that's a physical injury, it could be even animal feeding or something on a branch, to a swollen area or an area that looks distorted, that's some sort of a canker. I'd recommend pruning that out, but follow the branch down so you can see where that's affected, and then go about 3 to 4 inches behind that towards the central part of the shrub and remove it.
All right. Jeff, two pictures on this one. This is a Lincoln viewer. Noticed something wrong with their oak last summer. Nothing wrong anyplace else, and they're wondering if their beautiful tree is sick.
Well, I don't know if it's sick, but I think it has a branch that has included bark. So again, kind of like what we were talking about before, having targets. It's a big enough tree that if there's anything but nearby, or it's near a sidewalk, a driveway, your house, playground, I think I'd go ahead and remove that branch, or think about just replacing the tree.
All right, two pics on the next one. This is an Omaha viewer. Her lilacs are flowering, and they all are, which is crazy. She says these are on new stems. The flowers are tiny, deformed, and almost feel like plastic. Any ideas?
I think it's herbicide damage. would be my guess. And I'd be curious to have them take a look at the leaves. The leaves should be cupping as well, and maybe they didn't notice that quite so much. But that would be my suspicion, just because, as Terry's been talking about all the henbit, I smell a lot of dicamba and 2,4-D in the air around town. So I would suspect herbicide damage.
All right, and one pick on the next one. This is actually Weigelia, planted in heavy shade. This is an elkhorn viewer. He wonders when he could prune these. Could he prune them all the way back?
Well, you just did an excellent piece on pruning and avoiding making sure that they still flower. So if you want it to flower, and if it's been a reliably flowering shrub for you, you may want to wait until flowering is finished. If it hasn't been because it's maybe in too much shade, you could go ahead and do some pruning. And yes, you could prune it all the way back. It's not a large plant to me, so I think I would look at more at heading some of the branches back, maybe taking a couple of the bigger canes out instead of taking it all the way to the ground.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Well, protecting young trees from harsh Nebraska winters is pretty critical to help them get off to the right start. This may include some form of tree wrap on the trunk. But what's good for the protection from the cold can be deadly when the weather warms up. Maybe you did the right thing when you bought one of those new trees and you put tree wrap around it of some sort. It either came with the tree or you decided that was the right thing to do to protect those nice, tender trunks from all of the ills and evils of the winter months. You need to take that off, because if you haven't taken it off after a single season, what you may discover is all sorts of marauding creatures have gotten in there. They've made that their home. They've drilled into the trunk of your tree. They're causing all sorts of diseases. You've got voles that have chewed the bottom of that particular tree. In other words, you may have a tree that is suffering from what you thought was going to be its protective coating. If you do need to put that wrap back on next year because it is a thin bark tree like a maple, put it on again at the end of the season. But you absolutely have to remove that wrap. We've seen trees actually girdle themselves because the wrap has embedded itself in the trunks when people simply think it's not going to make any difference because it's a flexible thing. So do make sure you pay attention, you look at what is happening with the tree, take that extra step. This is a really good time to do it because you're also going to see whether you have in fact created a terrible, terrible situation and you're going to get to buy a new tree. Tree wraps really are great for helping newly planted trees get off to the right start. That protection does keep the cold out, the warm out sometimes, can help keep critters away, but not always. So get it off as soon as you really can. All right, we have 3 announcements tonight of cool things in the gardening world. The first is, again, the May Museum 25th Annual Perennial Plant Sale, the 4th of May in Fremont. Spring Affair Plant Sale. The preview sale is Thursday the 25th. General admission Friday and Saturday with the URL on the screen for your information. And our very own UNL Horticulture Club annual plant bedding plant sale, May 2nd and 3rd, 9 to 4, May 4th, 9 to 1, or until they're sold out, East Campus Teaching Greenhouse. Those plants look awesome, Hort Club, by the way.
Yes, they do.
All right, pictures next. Wayne, you have 2 pictures of this. Students found 3 of these when they started stripping some compacted mulch and soil in the backyard farmer garden. What kind of grubs are they, and should they be treated in a garden?
Well, tough to tell exactly for sure from these pictures. They could either be green June beetles. You tell those because they walk on their back. If they just curl up into C's, then they're probably our typical white grubs. If you only found 3 of them in a large area, not enough to worry about.
All right, we have a viewer from Kansas, and actually this could be Lincoln as well. These things are all over small oaks. What are they, and are they harmful?
Oak bullet galls, really common, do not harm the tree. You can pick them off if they bother you. Other than that, it's nothing to worry about.
All right, Terry, you have 2 pictures on this one. This is a Lincoln viewer. 2 houses were torn down here and there was seating or something to hold the edges along sort of a public way. It will become a landscape, probably a native turf mix. Can this netting stuff be torn out easily without taking everything else with it?
No. I tell you this from experience. Once you have plants growing up through that, it will be very hard to get rid of. So if you don't have a lot of plants growing up through that now, I would probably remove it. I would use like some straw or something that's not going to have any of that hard plastic that if you need to hold the soil somewhere, if you're not going to be planting anytime soon, look at some kind of an annual cover crop of some kind or something to put down just to hold that soil into place. So yeah, it's a pain, I know.
Okay, you have 3 questions on the next one. This grass came up very fast, set seed. What is it?
It's annual bluegrass.
Okay.
So winter annual, not a hardy perennial. Management really is going to be the best way to control this. So it doesn't like sun. It doesn't like keep fertilizer down, those kinds of things.
All right, Lauren, 2 picks here. Last year she had a problem with her hollyhocks with brown rusty stuff about halfway through. Fungus, so she doesn't recall if there's anything to do, and this is new pictures from this year, so this is not what she really saw.
Yeah, and this isn't related to the rust. It's going to be a little later. I'm questioning if this isn't some sort of a virus in the hollyhock, Kim. A couple things. When it's cooler, a lot of times some of our flowering plants will have viruses, and then when it warms up, the temperature stops the growth of the virus. Actually, it's got some temperature dependency in the reaction, and it'll be fine. So I would be, just cautiously watch this. If it's a specimen plant or you're worried about spread, I would rogue it out.
All right, thank you. You have 2 picks on the next one. This is from Bolus, Nebraska. The rhubarb is coming up with brown spots on the leaves.
Yeah, I look close at this. It looked like all the injury was on some of the older leaves, and I thought this was possibly just some injury. Maybe, if it was a little frost injury early, something rough early that affected it, but it looked like the new growth is fine, so I'm not worried about a disease with this.
All right, Jeff, you have 1 picture on this one. This comes to us from McCook. Dirt drifts from all that wind around the lilacs, perennial flowers, and a very thick coating on the buffalo grass. Will this choke out or kill the plants?
It sure could. Yeah, you're going to want to rake as much of that out of there.
All right, 3 picks on the next one in about 60 seconds. They live in Elkhorn. They have a bald cypress, numerous knees, not harmful to the tree, to dig down and cut the knees. What would you do?
What would I do? I think I would probably extend my mulch bed out and leave the knees alone. But if they're bothering them, you can remove them. And so.
Will they re-knee if you?
I think they will. I mean, I think if they're producing knees, I think they'll continue to do it. We have several on campus that produce a lot of knees, and some that don't do that at all. So.
And we have people who ask us, why are they producing these?
I know, and I did a little research, and there were theories before that it was part of kind of the gas exchange and oxygen and that sort of thing, and now they're walking that back and saying they're not really sure why they produce these.
Just because they can.
Yeah, they can. You're right.
All right. Well, and again, ours on campus that have knees, they're way cool as long as you're watching where you're walking.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Don't trip over somebody else's knees.
Yeah.
All right. And that is going to do it for Backyard Farmer tonight.